Welcome to the Ship Psychology channel. My name is Crystal Vogels and I will be your counselor for today. So how come that your brains wouldn't be working together automatically? I mean, it's your brains, right? They're inside your head. It's one unit. Surely that is coordinated. Well, you'd think that, but alas, no. Because our brains, while they are indeed inside our own skull, and they look like a single unit, they are interlinked. They are not one unit. They don't operate as one unit. So I'm sure you've heard of the different parts of the brain. Everyone is familiar with the left side and the right side of the brain. You know, with the motivational stories of how the left side of the brain is your logical brain and the right side of the brain is your creative brain. It's a bit more complex than that. It's a lot more complex than that, actually. And there's also more than two parts to a brain. When you look at the structure of the brain, it's the other intersection that's much more interesting, because what you see then is that our brain is actually comprised of three different brains. Three different brains, each with a different level of understanding of our surroundings, each with different tasks to perform within the body and within the psyche, and different skills that we use on a day-to-day basis. So when you look at the three brains, you will notice that they are built on top of each other, as it were. The blue neocortex is the one that we're most familiar with, but within are two other brains, and each one is equally important. At the very, very base, you have the brainstem, and the brainstem is the reptilian brain. It's the oldest part of the brain, evolutionary. It goes back millions and millions and millions of years. I mean, even the dinosaurs had this, because every animal with a skeleton, with an internal skeleton, you will see this. And we need it because that is where our survival instinct resides. This is our instinctive brain. This is also what makes our bag of bones and tissue a living thing. But it's a very simple brain, and it thinks in terms of yes and no. Something is or something is not. There's no difference, no gray area. You can use that to your advantage, because when there's a car coming, your reptilian brain will override every other thought and get you out of the way. So you don't even think about running, you just do. And that's the strength of the reptilian brain. On top of that is the slightly less old animal brain, the mammalian brain. It is the part that makes us social beings. This is the part where we play. This is where your creativity lies, where your passions, your drive, your energy, your enjoyment, your ecstasy, they are there. This is where you dream. This is the part that day and night says, what if? What if I'd be an aviator? What if I'd be a pilot? I mean, I wanted to be a pilot when I was a kid. So those dreams come from the animal part of the brain, the mammalian part of the brain. And this brain has a bit more idea of time. The reptilian brain lives only in the here and now. What you see is what there is. If you don't see it, it's not there. So the reptilian brain says, okay, right now I can see you, but I don't see what's happening behind me. So what's happening behind me doesn't exist. To the animal brain, they have a bit more awareness. So to the animal brain, I have friends who I do not see right now, but who I know exist and who I know I can contact. So there is a broader idea of what is possible. There's also a broader idea of time. The animal brain is able to look a few days into the future and a few days into the past. Never more than a week, though. As you can already imagine, that these two have a very different idea of how to deal with a situation. The one thinks in terms of yes or no, I do this or I do not do, I act or I don't act. Whereas the animal brain is much more open. What if I do this? Or what if I do something else? Or what will people think if? Because while the animal brain is our dreams, it's also our nightmares. The one we're most familiar with is the big cortex on the outside. This is the neocortex, and this is actually the newest part of the brain, because throughout evolution, the brain developed from the tiny, beady red bit all the way to the big, complicated brain that we have. So what makes the neocortex so special? What makes it special is that this is what allows us to use abstract thought. This is why we understand time. This is why we understand math, science, things that are theoretically there, but not actually here. The neocortex also makes us able to think on long-term futures, different futures, some of which may never come to pass, but we can calculate, okay, different possible outcomes. We can look way, way back into the past, years, which is much, much further than that time horizon of the animal brain that only goes a few days back and forth. So our ability to learn from past mistakes, our ability to take things that have gone before and extract lessons from that and apply those to the future, that is all the rational brain that allows us to do that. The rational brain, however, is a logical brain. It does not do or understand emotions. It does not consider the interests of another while making a decision. Neocortex is very good at making decisions, but they don't take into account what that means for another being. The reptilian brain doesn't think of other beings either. The part of us that thinks of others, that wants to be considerate, that wants to be empathic, to show compassion, that is the animal brain, the one in the middle. So you can see how each three of these brains, and they are all there, we have all three, we need all three. They are interlinked, they are connected, but they do not work together as one unit because they are not one unit, they are not one brick. And these three tend to clash. Because they serve different interests, because they have different ways of interpreting the world around you, those interpretations will clash. There's no helping that, they will clash. And that's where the comparison to the ship comes in. You are like a ship at sea. Sometimes the weather is fair, and sometimes it's a bloody hurricane that you're caught in. At all times, your brains are your crew. And like a ship's crew, they have to work together. But like a ship's crew, they each have their own tasks. So let's take a look at that crew. The most familiar one, and the most recognizable one, especially in Western society, the one who's most celebrated, is the rational captain. Your captain is very good at navigating. They know exactly how to get from point A to point B, how to plan that across time, what you should or shouldn't be doing. They know the rules, they know the laws, they know all these things that, well, society wants you to know, society wants you to use. They're good at math, they're good at calculations, they're good at anything systematic. Okay, you want to go from A to B? They plot the course. They can tell you exactly, if we get lost somewhere, potentially there and there's some difficult waters. How can we circumvent that? That's what your captain does. But your captain does not decide your destination. And that is something that often shocks a lot of people when I tell them, your rational brain, your captain, is not the one who decides the destination of your ship. That is the first mate. Your first mate is the compassionate one, is the enthusiastic one, is the one who just says, oh, I dream of this island and it has this and this, and oh, I want to go there, and in the bar they will have this, and Captain, that's where I want to go. Can you take us there? And then the captain plots the course to get there. So the captain doesn't decide. Maybe the captain says, well, are you sure you want to go there? Because there's this, this, and this along the way. Are you sure about that? As long as the first mate says, yes, I'm sure, let's go for it. Then the captain says, okay, And while your first mate has the drive, has, the sails, they are the wind in the sails, they are the one that pushes you forward, they are the one who drives the engine, who provides energy for the engine to push your ship forward. It doesn't matter what the ship looks like. I'll get to that in a bit, but that is your propulsion, that is your drive. And the one who does all the things, who makes sure that your ship, your body, is in good order, that everything is working the way that it should, that it's safe, that it's clean, that it's well fed, that it's all ready to go, and actually helps the first mate go through the motions to take action, that is the deckhand. And the deckhand is our reptilian brain. And we think we don't hear much of them because while both the first mate and especially the captain are very verbose, deckhands don't talk so much. They don't need to. A simple yes or no suffices to them. And action to them speaks louder than words. So we tend to think that we don't hear much of our deckhand throughout the day. But every time you get up to go to the toilet, every time you go grab something to eat, that's your deckhand. Any time that you are behind your computer, you should be typing that email. You have the words in your head. You really know that you should. It is your deckhand who places your hands on the keyboard and who starts typing, who says, first mate wants this done, needs this done. Captain, you have a plan. In this case, for example, the first mate has something that they desire. The way to get it is to ask someone. So the captain says, we're going to ask that person. We're going to send them an email. And then the deckhand says, okay, but break it down for me. Tell me, how do I type the email? And it's your captain who gives instructions to your deckhand to type the words, to actually type the different letters that make up the word and eventually make up the entire email. That's how they work together. So they each have their own task, they each have their own skills, they each have their own weaknesses as well. They are strong. Each of them are strong in their own way. But they also have their weaknesses, and that's where things start to rub. That's it for this video. I hope to see you in the next one. And don't forget, like and subscribe. That's what makes the YouTube world go around. Thank you very much.